So today we will be covering the basics of editing a video in Premiere Pro. We will be covering how to start a project, importing your files, and a couple basic editing skills to get you started. This class is designed to be at a beginner level, so no experience is required, and we will not be delving into the nitty-gritty of all the details today, as there is a lot that can be accomplished with Premiere Pro, and you'll find that out as you delve a little further into Premiere and you go along in your editing journey. So if you want to follow along with today's class, or when the recording is posted later, you can actually get a free 7-day trial of Premiere through the Adobe website, or currently, all 5 of the Plano Public Library locations offer access to the Adobe Creative Cloud, so you can access Premiere Pro for free anytime at the library with your library card on our Adobe stations. So let's go ahead and get started. So what is Premiere Pro? Adobe Premiere Pro is a timeline-based, non-linear video editing software application. And what does non-linear mean? If you're anything like me and you were, just getting into editing, you might not know what that means. So linear editing is a method that was originally used to edit film strips. It is when scenes are selected and arranged in a linear fashion. You can't jump from one clip to another without starting all over. It's a very tedious and time-consuming process, and you also risk damaging the original files because you're working solely with those original files. So if you make a cut you didn't mean to make, unfortunately, you can't go back and change it. Nonlinear editing, however, is when videos are loaded into a computer and the editor can actually cut, copy, and paste scenes in any order that they would like without damaging the original copies. This is a much more flexible editing style, and you don't have to worry about damaging the original content, which is really nice when you are working with big projects or a lot of files. So now that we know a little bit about the type of editing that we are going to be doing with Premiere Pro, let's go ahead and get started by opening up Premiere. So I'm going to get out of our presentation here and open up Premiere Pro. And on my desktop, I have it saved down here on the taskbar. So I'm going to go ahead and click on the icon to open it up. And when we open, this is the screen that we see. So we can see here, Adobe actually has some tutorials that you can take, and they also link you to some more in-depth tutorials on the web that you can take. And actually with your Plano library card, you also have access to some LinkedIn courses. There's a really great Premiere Pro Essentials course that you can take that is hours long and will really delve into all the various options you have when it comes to editing with Premiere. So we will drop a link to those courses into the chat if you'd like to access those after this class and continue your learning. But let's go ahead and get started. So we are going to start a new project. And the way we will do that is by over here on our left-hand side, clicking on this new project button. And when we do that, it opens us up with our new project window. And here we really want to pay attention to our name. This is going to be where we name our project, our location. This is where our project files are going to end up saving. And then down here is actually where you can set various different audio and visual settings. Today, for our basics class, we're just going to keep with these recommended settings that Premiere has given us. As you continue with your editing journey, you might decide you want to change those depending on what you are using your editing for. But today, we're just going to keep what it has auto-generated for us. So we're going to start by naming our project, and we will just name it Intro to Video Editing. And to change our location, because what Premiere does is it actually chooses the last saved spot to save your new project into. So this is the last project I was working on, but it's not where I want our new project to be saved. So I'm going to click here on Browse instead. And I want it to be saved onto my desktop. And I have a folder here already called Intro to Video Editing. So I'm going to double click to go ahead and save it in there. And I also want to save it here in my project file. So I'm going to select that folder, and we can see here now that path, that it's in my project folder, in my Intro to Video Editing folder. And we're now going to go ahead and press OK. Okay. And so now our project has been created here, and this is our workspace. So if you'll see up here at the top, we have a workspace ribbon, and Adobe Premiere has a couple of different preset workspaces that you can select. For today's class, we are going to be focusing mainly in this editing workspace. We will hop a little bit into this effects workspace, which you can see over here, brings up our effects panel. And then there are various other options that you can choose for your workspace. They will each bring up a different layout and a couple of different options that might be helpful to you. But again, we're going to go ahead and remain in editing. So let's talk about our editing workspace. So down here in our lower left corner, this is called our project panel. This is going to be where we can store and view our imported files. So when we're ready to import our files, this will be where we can see them. And then up here in our upper left corner, this is our source monitor. So this is going to be where we can actually view the original files that are down here. We can preview them in our monitor here. You can do a couple basic edits in your source monitor, and we will talk about that. But there is also in this source monitor what is called the effects control panel here. And this is going to be another important panel that we will be using for this course. And then if we move over here to the right, in the top right, we have our program monitor. And so this is where you are actually going to be able to view a preview of your project or of your edit as you go along. You'll be able to see that here. So these two monitors are different because here we're viewing the original unedited files, and here is where we can see all of the changes that we're making in our complete project. And then down here in the lower right, we have our timeline. So the timeline is going to be our primary editing location. This is going to be where we view and edit most of our project clips. We will be dragging things over here to create what they call a sequence, which is our project. And then we can make further edits in the timeline. Another really important part of the workspace is this right here, which is our tools panel. And if you hover over each tool, Adobe will pop up a little box that tells us exactly what that tool is. So for this course, we're going to be focusing mainly on our selection tool. We are going to use our razor tool, and we're going to use our type tool as well. Before we go on, do we have any questions about anything that has been covered so far?
Not in the chat. I did have someone raise their hand. Oh, here we go. Is this a one-day program? Also, how long does this class last?
Yes, this is a one-day program. It is slotted to last till about 2. I'm hoping we will get through everything. If not, we might run just a few moments over. But there will also be a recording of this class that you can access at a later time on our YouTube, and that will be up a few days after the program.
And so far, that's next question. You mentioned we could get the program for free with our library card. How do we do that?
So what I mentioned for free with your library card is each library has a computer at the library. It's called the Adobe Station computer. So you would have to come into the library to use Premiere or any of the Adobe Creative Cloud courses. But all of the libraries have an Adobe Station that you can utilize. You come in and log in with your library card and you can use it. There is also that 7-day free trial that you can get through Adobe Premiere, through the Adobe website. You can download a 7-day free trial as well if you wanted to do some hands-on learning at home. Okay, any more questions?
Yes, one more. Do you have any job aids of the workspaces?
Yes, actually. So if you, we have some exercise files that we're going to be following along with today. Diana, if you wouldn't mind dropping those files into the chat if you haven't already. And there is a link to the handout. And the handout, you can actually follow along with me. That is what I'm going to be following through for the rest of this program. And on the very first page, there is a workspace layout, and it has all the important ones for this course. If you wanted to explore some of the further workspaces, I would definitely suggest some of the LinkedIn courses that we've already dropped into chat. Any other questions?
No.
Okay, awesome. So let's go ahead and get started with importing. So there are three main ways that you can import files, and I'm going to show you each of those. So the first one we're going to do is by selecting File up here on our top menu bar, and then Import, which is down here, kind of towards the end. And once we click that, our window pops open here. So I need to go ahead and select my files, which it is on my desktop, and here under my Intro to Video Editing folder, project, and my exercise files. So these are the exercise files that Diana just dropped a link to for you guys. And we're going to go ahead and import just one of these. So we'll import our first clip by pressing open here. And once we do, we can see it pops up down here in our project panel. So the second way that we can import some media is actually double clicking anywhere in this project panel on the black area. And that will also bring up this window. So you could again navigate to the correct folder, and we'll select our second clip to go ahead and add. And we'll press open, and it has now loaded. And the third way that we can go ahead and import files would be by dragging them into Premiere, which is what I typically prefer to do. So for that, we're going to make our screen a little bit tinier. And I can see here my folder on the desktop, and I'm going to open it up to get to those exercise files. And we're going to drag the rest of those exercise files in. So 3 all the way through our music, and we're going to drag it down into this panel. I'm going to go ahead and exit out of this, and we can see here that those other files have been added, and they are now visible down here in our project panel. So now we are going to talk real quickly about editing clips in the source monitor. So in our source monitor, you can make basic timing editing to clips before adding them to the timeline. So we are going to do that with our Beach 2 clip. So what we're going to do is double click on this clip in the project panel, Beach 2, and that is going to open up a preview for us in our source monitor. And right here is our timeline. We have a little bar down here that we can use to actually zoom in and out on our video clip. So this is the clip in the entirety, and if we wanted to go really slowly and really get in depth, we could zoom in a little bit. So we're going to zoom it all the way back out so we can see our entire clip. And if you can see, this clip right here is a total of 1 minute and 20 seconds, and that is just a little longer than we would like for our project today. So we are going to make a little edit. And there are some useful tools down here in our source monitor. So this right here is to add a marker. And a marker is what you can use to mark an important spot in the footage if you think it's a part of the footage you might want to use later. And you can also double click on that marker and add a comment if you wanted. So if you wanted to come back later and look at why you liked that portion of the video, you can add a comment and it will be saved. This is really useful if you're working in collaboration with people. But we're not going to do that today. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete that little marker there, which I can do here by right-clicking and selecting Clear All Markers. So now we have our clip again, and this next little symbol is to mark an in. And what that does is we can mark basically a new beginning point for the clip. And then this one is to mark the out, and that will be to mark our new end point of our clip. Before we mark those new points, I do just want to review these tools here as well. So this tool right here is to go to our in. So right now that would take us to the beginning of our clip. And once we make a new in, it would take us to that new in. And then all the way on the other side is the go to out. So that will do the same thing. It will take us to the end of our clip or where we have marked the end of our clip. And then these right here are to step back by just 1 frame. So I can use this to very slowly step back through my through the video file, which is very, very slowly, frame by frame. So you can very slowly see it moving. And over here on the other side of our play is going to be the same thing, but we'll be stepping forward 1 frame. So we are going to go ahead and again edit our time, and there's a couple different ways we can do that. So we can either drag our playhead here to where we would like to start and stop. And I've decided we're going to start our clip, let's see, at about the 50-second mark. So right about there. So that is where I want the clip to start, and I'm going to select Mark In. So that is going to be the new start of our video once we drag it to our timeline. And we also want to mark a new out point. So to do that, instead of dragging my playhead, what I will actually do is type in the exact time I want it to end. So we are going to have this end at 1 minute and 14 seconds. So 1 minute, 14 seconds. And press enter, and that's going to move our playhead to that point, and that's where I want it to end. So I'll click mark out. So now you can see this is going to be the duration of our clip, and to drag that into our timeline, I'm going to hover over the clip here, click down and hold, and you can see it brings up that little fist as we're dragging it down, and we will drop it into our timeline. So now we can see our original source over here, and we can see the little bit that we have cut, just those few seconds over here. And in our timeline, it has a very similar setup to our source monitor. So down here, we can zoom in and out, so we can really get into very specifics, or we can get a larger view if we are adding more clips. And then we have our playhead that we can move to move along the sequence. Do we have any questions about editing in that source monitor or dragging a clip into the timeline?
If we want multiple clips from the same video file, how do we set those?
So if you're wanting multiple clips from, so do we mean taking a like 30-second video and you're wanting to chop it up into multiple clips? Is that the question that's being asked?
No. I think they're expanding on it.
Okay. And that might be one, we might just come back to that in a little bit, because there are a couple different ways that if you just wanted an additional copy of a clip, say you wanted to drag 2 beach 3s in, you could just drag another clip in and it will create another clip for you. But after we dragged that here, if you'll see right up here, this is our sequence name. And what Adobe does is it actually automatically names it the name of that clip. Over here in the project panel, if you can see this little icon at the lower right of this is how we know this is a sequence. That is the little icon for our sequence. So I'm actually going to click on Beach 2 because I want to rename our sequence so I can keep it separate from my other clips just in my organization. So we have a bunch of beach clips today, so we're going to call this our summer vacation project. And you can see now here, right above the timeline, it's been renamed Summer Vacation. So when I am coming through the project panel over here, I can tell my project file apart from my other files here.
Nikki, we had some explanation for that question. So if using Beach 2, for example, then I might want 15 seconds to 45 seconds and 50 seconds to 1 minute and 15 seconds. Do I understand from your comment that I need to re-import the original Beach 2 video file?
No, so you can actually just, after we have already dragged, so I've already done that first bit that we did together and drag that in. So now on this file, I can come and mark a new in, and let's say I want just that bit. I'll mark a new out, and I can now click and drag the same way I did that other one. So now we have that first one that we already did, and we have that second one where we created new in and out points. Does that answer that question?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, perfect. You are welcome. All right, so now that we've done a little bit of editing in our source monitor, we're going to talk about editing clips in our timeline. So the timeline, again, is where the majority of our editing is going to occur and where our projects are really going to come together. This is where we can really focus on adding effects and transitions to both audio and video files. There are a ton of effects and transitions that are available in Premiere. And today, again, we're just going to cover a few of the basics. We've already talked about the important tools that we're going to be using. So let's focus on using our razor tool for our next clip. So what I'm going to do now is I have all my files labeled actually in the order I want them in, and we started on our Beach 2 clip. So I'm actually just going to click on the Beach 2 clip and move it a bit down my timeline because I want to put my Beach 1 clip in front of it. So now that I've had it moved down the timeline a little bit, I'm going to come to our project panel and find my Beach 1 clip and click it and drag it straight into the timeline. And so now we have our Beach 1 clip, and I can actually click on Beach 2 and drag it to snap in place right behind Beach 1. I'm going to zoom in just a little bit so we can see it a little better. And then what we're going to do, we're already at the very beginning of our clip. Let's just take a quick look at this clip, see what it looks like, and see what we might want to do with it. Okay, so we have a car coming into frame into a hilly section. So let's say we want to make a cut to this. And instead of making it in our source monitor, we've already dragged it here into the timeline, and we just want to make that cut here. So what we're actually going to do, I want to make that cut right before our car comes into frame. So I can either do that by clicking on this playhead and moving it to right before the car comes in. Or if I want to be really, really detailed about it, here on our program monitor, we have the same controls that were on the source monitor. So we can step back frame by frame until we get to the exact frame that that car goes out of view. If you guys could see that. So if we go forward one frame, we can start to see that car. We'll go back one frame, it's gone. So that is going to be where we want to make our cut. So on our tools panel, we're going to select our razor tool. And right where that playhead is, we will actually click. And once we do that, we can see, if I zoom in a little bit, that a little line has appeared. And that is because our clips have been cut. So I can now move this clip if I'd like. I can, let's expand back out. I can move this clip down there if I think I might want to use it later, or I can go ahead and just delete it because I actually know that I'm not going to be using it later. And since I removed that clip from the beginning of our sequence, it leaves this gap here, a really handy tool that you can use. If you right click into any gap and click ripple delete, what that does is just closes that gap for you so you don't have to worry about manually moving all of those clips back to the front. So that's a really handy tool to have. Any questions about the razor tool?
No, it does not look like we have any questions.
Okay, perfect. So that is going to be what pretty much all we'll talk about for the razor tool. You can use it to cut up that clip as many times as you would like, and then you can move the clips here and there without worrying about damaging these original files. So with our next clip, we're going to talk about resizing. So our next clip is going to be our Beach 3 clip. So I'm going to go ahead and find that here in our project panel and drag it over here. And when I drag it into the timeline, you can tell that my Beach 3 file looks a little different from my Beach 1 and my Beach 2 file. And that's because here in the timeline, I'm going to expand it just a little bit so you guys can see better. We have video tracks up here, V1, 2, and 3. Those are our video tracks. And then A1, 2, and 3, those are our audio tracks. So our Beach 1 and our Beach 2 clips have an audio track to them. But if I play it, it is actually just a silent audio track. If you were importing a video that you took that had audio with it, the audio would begin playing as well. These clips just happen to have a silent audio track connected to it. And then this one has no audio track to it, which is why nothing is showing up down here. It is just this video track that we can move. So let's zoom back in to our Beach 3 clip.
Vicky?
Yes.
I do have one razor question that came in.
Yes.
The razor tool, does it only apply to the channel you're on or all at that time point?
All at that time, oh, whatever you have selected. So if I let's see, if I were to do this and use my little razor tool and come here, it only applied it to that first one because that is what I had selected. So let me show you guys that again. I'm going to use my selection tool to just have this purple clip selected. And if I use the razor, I can come here and it's only going to apply it on my purple clip. I'm going to Control Z. That's going to undo what I just did. I'm going to use my selection tool and press Control to select both. I'm sorry, Shift to select both clips. And now if I use the razor tool, you'd have to, yeah, you do still have to, I'm sorry, you do still have to go to both. So you do individually have to make those cuts. You'd have to go down the line for that. I apologize. Okay, but let's get that moved back. There we go. And I'm gonna drag this back down a little bit. Okay, and I'm gonna move our playhead over our beach 3 so we get a little preview here. So we have a person floating in our water. And we were going to talk about resizing clips with this one. So I want to zoom in just a little bit. And the way we can do that is if I come over here to our source monitor, we talked earlier about that little effects controls. So we are going to go ahead and use that. And that is going to pop up some options here. We are going to focus here on our motion, our position, and our scale. So our scale, we can actually click on and you can put in a new number. So let's say we want to zoom to 125. And if you guys see in our program monitor, that zoomed us in a little bit. We can use this little icon right here if we want to reset. We decide we don't like that actually. I'm going to go ahead and reset it. And we can also, if you don't know exactly the number you'd like to zoom into, we can click. If you click and hold and then move your mouse either to the right or the left, you can zoom in and out. So for this clip, we're going to put it at 124. That looks good. And then this position right up here is going to be the same thing. We can either click and put in our positions, but for position, I really like to click and drag because this one right here is going to move us up and down vertically, and this one's going to move us left and right horizontally. And for me, I'm just a visual person, so it makes a lot more sense to just drag for this one. So we're going to put this at, let's say, 665. And we will put this, we'll go right around here to 309. So now we've resized our clip and we've zoomed in just a little bit there. So now with our next clip, we are going to talk about editing color. So like the others, we're going to go ahead and drag in our Beach 4 clip to our timeline and pop it there right next to Beach 3. I'm going to move our playhead again so that I can see our preview over here. And if you guys can tell, our colors kind of change. We go from really bright blues over here, and then it gets kind of gray. So I'm deciding I kind of want to change the color for this. So Lumetri color is what we are going to use. And the way we will use that is if we actually come up here, one moment, to Effects, that is going to pop open our Effects tab over here. And we can see right here, there is a tab for Lumetri color. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that. And that's going to bring up our Lumetri color options. When it comes to color editing, you can either color grade or color correct. So color correct is when you're trying to make the scene look like how it was in real life. So we'd really want to make these blue and bring out the sand. And then color grading is used more for aesthetic purposes. So if you want to kind of put a blue tint to this or a green tint to this, those are a couple different options for color editing. We're going to just color correct. We want it to look a little brighter. So with Lumetri color, they have an option to auto where they will decide what they think needs to be brought up and down. I actually don't like what the auto did there. I would prefer to change our temperature a little bit so we can get a few more of those blue tones. So I'm going to click reset instead. And you can also right here, you can drag any of these anyway to change all of these different parameters. So we can bring our highlights up or down, our shadows up or down, and that will all really just take a little bit of playing to get used to, and it will depend on what you're editing and how you want your clips to look. But again, I just want this to be a little brighter, a little more blue like our other clips. So what we are going to do here is change our temperature. So we're going to bring it down a little bit. We want to bring some of that blue in. And right there, that looks about good to me. So I'm going to keep our temperature there at 33. And I'm also going to bump our exposure up just a little bit. So at 0.9. And now that looks a little better of a transition to me. It's not quite as dark. And another really useful thing with Lumetri Color, if you'll look over here in our panel, there is this little FX that you see, and you can actually click on this to toggle all those changes we just made to the color off. So I'll go ahead and toggle that off so we can see what it originally looked like. So that was what it looked like before we made all those changes. I can toggle it back on to see those changes. So I definitely like the way that that clip looks with that temperature change a little bit better. Do we have any questions about, we just talked about resizing clips and then editing color. Do we have any questions about those?
I'm going to give it a couple seconds to see if any of them come in real quick.
Perfect. Okay, if we don't have any more questions, I'm going to go ahead and
One
move
just
on.
came in.
Yes.
Sorry.
Okay.
Can we just pick color from previous videos and drop the tone of that color in the next video?
So if you have made changes, you can copy your changes. So if I've made these changes here, what I can do is right click on my clip and press copy. And then let's say I want the same tones over here to be over here. I can right click on this clip and I can click paste attributes. And when I do that, it brings up this paste attributes. It'll give you options. If you have other effects that have been applied to this clip, a bunch of different options will show up. All we did was color. So that's the only thing that we have that we can transfer over. So I'm going to keep that clicked and I would press OK. And it has now copied those from this clip over to this clip. And that makes that water very, very blue.
But you can't do it from the previous clip, like from this one that's showing right now, you can't do it onto the one that you were editing at first.
That is a great question. I'm going to be really honest. I am not too sure. It would be something that we can look a little further into for you. And it would also be something, again, this is just a basics course. That is a pretty detailed question. It might be something you can find in one of those LinkedIn courses mentioned. And I know Adobe also has a couple really good of their own color editing tutorials. So I would look through that. I personally have not used that option. So I'm not sure. I apologize about that.
I can jump in and just say that that's an advanced feature that you can use under the Lumetri scopes feature next to effect control. So if you're wanting to explore that more, there is an effect for Lumetri color under both the effect controls menu on, sorry, the name's escaping me, but under effect controls over on the left, you have Lumetri color under the time remapping. No, under effect controls. You have under time remapping, you have Lumetri color available. So all of that will allow you to be more specific with your color editing within specific clips. But as Nick, you said, that is a more advanced question, but that's where you would do that.
All right. And then another question, could you change the color of only one part of that video that you were editing first?
That is possible. You would use keyframes to do that basically. And keyframing is, again, it's a little more in depth. We don't have time to cover how you could insert keyframes and do edits to just smaller portions of those videos. We are, again, just going over some basics so you can get started. I definitely recommend checking out that LinkedIn Adobe Essentials training. They go through a lot of stuff in there that I think you would find very useful. So yes, it is possible, but today we just don't have enough time to delve into that. Any more questions?
That is all.
Okay, so we're going to go ahead and move on to adding transitions then. So again, like Adobe, I've said this a million times it feels like so far, but there are a plethora of options for transitions. So over here in our effects panel, we can see we have video transitions and audio transitions and effects. So there are folders under each of them. So there are a ton that you can browse through and decide what you like, what you don't like. But for today's course, we're going to go ahead and focus on cross dissolves. So let's start by dragging our next clip into our timeline. So we're going to come to our project panel over here and grab our Beach 5 clip and drag it in and snap it. And I'm going to put my playhead right over it and make sure I have it selected in my timeline so I can see all my effect controls over here and I can see my preview over here. So now I want the cross dissolve. So that is going to be here under video transitions and under dissolve. And what cross dissolve is going to do is add a transition in between these two clips so that as this clip fades out, this clip will fade in. So to drag that transition between the two clips, I'm just going to click on cross dissolve here and drag it down to in between the two clips. And we get this message here. It says insufficient media. This transition will contain repeated frames. So I'm going to go ahead and click OK and show you guys what that means. I'm going to zoom in here so we can really see where our effect has been laid down. So we can see this is where our cross dissolve has been laid down. And that message it gave us pops up when there are not additional frames in the video clip to pull from for the transition. So what it does is it will repeat the very last frame for this transition, and it will repeat the very first frame from this clip for the transition. So if I move us through this clip, you can see, if you'll pay attention to this gentleman's foot, how it doesn't move for those couple clips there. It's because it's just repeating that last frame. And then if you can pay attention to the water over here, you can see that it is also, for those couple frames, not moving. And that's because we don't have anything to pull from. So if we don't want to get that error message and we want it to continuously merge together and we don't have those repeated frames, what we need to do is cut our clips just a little bit. So to do that, I am going to click here on my cross dissolve. And when I do that, one moment here. There we go. And I'm, one moment, click. There we go. Sorry, my mouse was being testy. Okay, and it's still being testy. There we go. Now I actually have it selected. So now I have my cross dissolve selected and I can right click and clear it and delete that cross dissolve. And what we're going to do so we don't get that error message, make sure we have our selection tool selected here. And you can see we get a little red arrow that generates when we hover over the clip. So I'm going to click and drag just a couple of seconds. So we can see down there, it says duration and it's showing us how much we're cutting off. So right there at 5, I'm going to cut off 5 frames there. And for Beach 5, I'm going to do the same thing. We're going to cut off the first 5 frames. So that red arrow shows up. I'm going to click and drag. That's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm going to snap those two together now. And when I drag that cross dissolve from over here down between our clips, we did not get that message. And if we slowly go through our cross dissolve, we can see that that gentleman's foot is continuing to move as that dissolve is happening. And then that water is constantly moving as well. So we don't have any of those repeated frames anymore. And it looks a lot smoother. And one more thing with that transition that I wanted to show you guys is if you right click on your transition, you get the option to set transition duration. So this is what you can use to make that transition longer or shorter. We do just have it set to a very quick 5-second frame cross dissolve here. And that's how we're going to leave it. We just want it to be a quick little thing, but let's take a look and see what that looks like. And beautiful, beautiful cross dissolve from our Beach 4 into our Beach 5 clip. Do we have any questions about that cross dissolve effect and dragging it on Okay, if there are no questions, we're going to go ahead and move on to adding text to the videos. So for that, we are going to go ahead and drag our Beach 6 clip in and snap it in place, just like we have for all of our other ones, right behind our Beach 5. I'm going to move our playhead again so that we can see our preview. Yes.
We have one question.
Okay.
How did you cut and where did you click?
I'm not too sure exactly what that is in reference to. Cutting of what?
Let's see if they'll expand on that.
And we're doing pretty good on time, so we can wait for a little bit of clarification on that question. Were we talking about our cross dissolve maybe?
Right before you cross dissolved without problems.
Okay, so how I made it not give us that error message, so when you hover over the start or the end of a clip, let me zoom in a little better so you can see this over just a little bit. So we have an end of a clip here and a start of a clip here. So when you hover over the end, you will get that little red arrow. And all I did when that red arrow shows up is I click and then drag to cut off however much time it is that I want to cut off. So we're not using the razor tool there. We are just clicking and dragging to edit the end of our clip, which is another option for editing. So I hope that answered the question. Were there any other questions?
No, that was our only one.
Okay.
I'll stop you if there's anything. And she said, okay. Yes, that answers the question. Thank you.
Perfect. Great. Okay, so let's talk about adding text then to our Beach 6 clip. So we've already dragged it in here. A lot of people like to add text to their video. It can really add something to it. For this clip, we're just going to add a short little blurb to it. So we're going to make sure we have our clip selected. We can see all of our options for our clip up here in our effects panel. And then we are going to select our type tool from our toolbar here. And now that I have the type tool selected, I'm going to click just anywhere on my program monitor here to start adding some text. And I'm just going to title this Summer Vacation. And so that pops up here. And over here in our effects panel, I actually want to choose Essential Graphics. This is going to be where we get all of our options for our font. We can change our font type, our font size, and we can even add a background to our font, which we are going to do today. We are going to add a opaque background to our summer vacation just to make it pop out a little bit more on the screen. So first, though, we are going to go ahead and change our font type. So I'm going to just click and drag to make sure this is all selected, and I'm going to change our font type to Century Gothic. Let's go ahead and choose that. And I'm also going to change our font. So this right here, if you guys can see right underneath where I selected that text, this 100, that is our font size. So I can drag to create the size I want, or just like before, we can click into here and change it. So I'm going to change it to 85, and that looks good to me. So now I want to add a background to this. So I'm going to go ahead and click here. If you can see under Appearance, we have the option for a background. So if I click background, that gives us a nice opaque background there, which is great. That is exactly what we want for this video. You do have some options. You can mess with the opacity, so you can make it a little more opaque or block it completely. But we want to keep that at 85, or I think it was actually at 75. Let's put it at 75. So we'll keep it at that 75% opacity. And you do also have the option, if you wanted to change the color, you can do that. So I would probably personally use a color that's already in our video. So you could use our little dropper tool. And the way I did that was this dropper tool right here next to our background. And you could use a dropper tool to choose one of the droppers and change our background color. If you didn't want to use the dropper, you can also click in here and choose any of these colors to change the background. But we just want to keep it black, so I am going to press Control Z to undo what I just did. And now we have our summer vacation, but it's in kind of a weird spot. That is not exactly where I want that to be. So I'm going to go ahead and click my selection tool again. And now I can click on my text and move it wherever I would like on the screen. So I'm going to go ahead and move it, we'll say there. Something that's really helpful when you're adding text in is to use the safe margins, which there is a button here in our program monitor called safe margins. I'm going to pop that on, and I actually like to line my text up with that. So I'm just going to line it up with my bottom corners. And that way, if I am putting text in multiple videos, I can make sure I have it in generally the same place so it looks like a smoother edit and transition. I'm going to pop those margins off so I can't see them any longer. And then with our text, so when we added our text, if you'll notice, it popped up its own box here in our timeline. So it's now on our V2 track. And very similar to our video clips, we can drag to make it longer. So right now, it's not lasting our whole clip duration. It kind of awkwardly pops up in the middle. So what I want to do is drag it to the entire duration of this clip, which again, I'm just doing by hovering near the front or the back of these clips, and then clicking when I get that arrow and dragging. So I'm going to drag it so that it's on just our last frame here. But if you wanted to, you can drag it. Let me zoom out just a little bit here. You can drag it all the way so it is there throughout the entire video. That's not quite what I want for today though. So I'm going to once again just press Control Z and get it back to where it is on just our last little clip there. Were there any questions about adding text?
Not at the moment.
Okay, perfect. So we are making great time, guys. We are going to talk about one more element here, which is going to be to add some music. So we do want to add some audio to this clip to make it a little more engaging. So what we're going to do first, and earlier we talked about the difference between these file types here. Since I'm wanting to add some audio, I want it to run the full length of our video, and I don't want these audio tracks to interfere with it. Since they're silent, they wouldn't anyways, but let's say that there was some audio element to this video that I did not want to be in my final edit. I want a different audio element there. What I'm going to do is click on this clip so I can see both my tracks are now highlighted because they are linked together. What I need to do is unlink these two so that I can delete just the audio track but keep my video portion. So now that I have that clip selected, I can right click and select unlink right here. And now you can see I can actually select them independently of each other. I can select the video and I can select the audio. So I'm going to select the audio and press delete. So we no longer have that audio track. And I'm going to repeat that for our Beach 1 clip as well. So click to select it, right click and unlink. And just to show you guys, if you accidentally unlink something, but you want it to remain linked so it's easy to move throughout your timeline, you can press Shift and select both tracks, right click, and you can link those clips again. But let's unlink and we will delete our audio. So now we have a completely clear audio track down here, and we're going to drag in instead the audio that we would like to use. So we're going to drag our boardwalk audio here, and it's going to pop into our audio timeline. And we can see that is a very long song. So it actually expands way past when we need it. So we are going to, just like we did with our other clips, adjust the length of it. So that little red button is going to pop up again, and we're going to drag it to there. And if you guys can see when I'm dragging it, it gives us those little funnel-like or Y-shaped icons. That is showing you that it's popping basically directly to the end of those clips as well. So if we do a zoom in, I'll move my playhead over here so we can zoom in near the end. We can see that that is going to end just at the same time that all of our other clips do. There we go. So now what we can do, I'm going to jump us to the start of the video so we can hear that audio. Let's see, I'm actually not sure. Let's see, can you guys hear this?
No.
No? Okay, I didn't think so, but that's okay. You guys don't need to hear it. While I'm playing it though, if you'll notice right over here, this is our audio meter. So this is showing us that this is really high audio. The audio level on this is really high. It might be something we might want to adjust because it would just be blowing out people's speakers when it reaches that red. We don't really want it to reach the red. So what we are going to do is adjust the volume of our audio file. And I want to kind of zoom in to give you guys a better look. So I'm going to expand my timeline a little bit. And on all of these tracks, you can actually expand them so you can see them better. I like to keep my video tracks smaller, and then I tend to expand my audio tracks so you can see all the peaks and everything. And this is a very loud audio track, so we just want to bring it down a little bit. So I'm going to select that audio track, and I'm going to right click. And when I right click, we get this option for audio gain. This is going to be what we use to adjust our volume. So we want to bring our volume down some decibels. So if we wanted to up it, we could just, say 5, and that would bring us up and raise our volume by 5 decibels. But we want to bring it down. So we're going to put a -5 there and press OK. And then you guys can see it actually brought those peaks down. So it lowered our audio file. And if I press play again, we can see here, we're not running into that danger zone of the red area. Our audio is still pretty loud, but it should be okay for our video, but you can always go in and make more adjustments there as well. And actually, that's still pretty loud. We're getting into the yellow. Let's go ahead and we'll make another adjustment. So if you want to make another adjustment, the adjustment you made the first time actually remains. So we already have that -5 on here. I want to go to a total of -10. So I'm going to do another -5, and you can see that gives us our total of -10 up here. So I'm going to press OK. It brought them down even further, and that is perfect. We're now in the green area for our audio peaks. Okay, did we have any questions about the audio? We are getting close to the end. We're about to export our file.
Not yet. Not any questions about audio yet.
Okay, perfect. Well, then let me real quickly get into saving and exporting your project. We will cover that, and then we'll pause for some questions and answers if we have any more pop up. But saving your project, what that does is it will keep it as a Premiere file that can later be accessed via a computer with Premiere or the computer you were working on before. So when you go to File, Save, that's all that's doing. It's saving your project file. This is not creating a new video. It's not putting this sequence together to create a brand new video. For that, you would need to export your media. That's going to change the file type to one that can be read on a multitude of devices, but it's no longer the editable project file. So you will no longer be able to go in and change these around unless you went to your project file. So let's go ahead and export it so we can get our own little video here from what we've made. So to export, we're going to come up here to File, and then all the way down near the end, Export. And that will pop out this window, and we're going to click on Media. So File, Export Media. That is going to pop up our screen here. This is our export screen. And again, we have a lot of settings over here, and these are a little more advanced settings where as you get further into your editing journey, you might figure out you might want to change some of these. We are, for the most part, going to keep these the same. There are a few changes we are going to make. So we are going to change our source range down here to entire sequence. That way we are getting the entirety of the sequence we had on our timeline. And then we are going to change our preset. Let's say we're going to be uploading this to YouTube. They have a bunch of presets here that are great if you are making videos for social media. They already have a bunch of Facebook presets and Instagram, Twitter, YouTube. So we're just going to choose YouTube. We will choose YouTube 1080. And then a really important thing to remember here under output name, if you click on that, you can change where your exported video is being saved. And this is very similar to when you open the project. This defaults to where you were last working in a project. So I was last working on a different project, and I don't want this new file to be saved there. So I'm going to click on it, and it's going to open up my files where I can now go find the appropriate project file, which again was on my desktop here under Intro to Video Editing. And then I'm going to save it here under my project. So I will click Save here. And that is going to be all that we're going to change. So down here at the bottom, we have our export button. So I'm going to go ahead and press export. It is exporting for me. It takes just a little bit of time to export. Shouldn't take too long. While this is exporting, have we had any questions come in?
No questions yet.
Okay, perfect. So we're just going to wait for this to export, and then I will show you guys how it has popped up in my folder, and we'll just take a quick look at the video. I'll let any of those questions that might be rolling around come out. Let's see, a little bit longer here. And when you have longer project files, it will take longer to export your video. Luckily, we did not work on anything too long today, so it's not taken too much time. Almost done here. Perfect. And so it says our video was exported successfully. So let's go ahead and take a look at that video, you guys. So we're going to come out of Premiere, and I did tell it to save here under my Intro to Video Editing and under Project. And we can see here, this is our exported video. So let's go ahead and pop it up and take a look at it. There we go. And so now this is that video that we just put together. And it's going to play through with all of our edits. And this can now be taken and uploaded or distributed however you would like for it to be. All right, have we had any questions? We are now at the end. We just covered everything from importing to some basics to our final exported project here that we're just going to continue to watch so we can see some of our effects and transitions pop up later.
One of our questions was, are you able to play it with audio? But it's more of the computer itself is not letting you play it with audio for the presentation.
All right, and that was our video. This is the last clip, and it just remains the same through the end. All right, we'll get out of that there. And close back up. Okay, so were there any final questions?
No. No questions.
All right, well, if not, then I do just want to thank everyone for joining today. We do appreciate you being here. I would like to remind you about the wonderful courses that you do have access to through LinkedIn Learning with your library card. I mentioned them throughout the course, and we've dropped some links into the chat. So do just make sure to take a look at those after this if you have more in-depth questions or would like to continue your learning. Diana, if you wouldn't mind dropping those links one more time for us, just in case, or you can scroll further up in the chat. Thank you very much. Be sure to stay up to date with Plano Public Library by following our Facebook page and checking out our blog at planolibrarylearns.org. There you can find recordings of past programs and other materials about how to take advantage of everything Plano Public Library has to offer. Again, there will be a recording of this session that you can access via our YouTube channel. It will be posted in just a few days if you'd like to take this course again. Please complete our program survey. It should pop up following this program. We do greatly value your feedback. It helps us get better. So thanks again for joining us today, and we will see you all next time.